This is the Yanks Go Yard podcast with Adam Weinrib and Thomas Carinante.
Welcome to a Monday edition of the Yanks Go Yard podcast. I'm Adam Weinrib. I'm back alongside Thomas Carinante. Major League Baseball, while I was gone, tried to cancel the entire Yankees season. They said Yankees too hot, Yankees too good, 18-7 on the year, 11-game winning streak. No more season, no more baseball. Rain out on Friday, rain out on Saturday, doubleheader Sunday, triple header Monday, quad header Tuesday between the Yankees and two different teams. The schedule in May is going to suck, and we are going to whine about it. But you know what? It's more important that the Yankees get their business right on the offensive end than MLB fix the schedule. Because at this moment, we've seen the pause. It's in the past. No need to talk about getting games crammed into different days and how confusing it is. Just hit the baseball. And so far into the fourth game of this stretch, that's including the pre-rainout Blue Jays finale, plus the doubleheader yesterday, plus the action right now. Nestor Cortez Jr. doing his thing. The Yankees offense doing its thing against John Gray. The bats have now been silent for 4 consecutive games. A bust out would be real nice. We know they're going to be streaky, but it always hurts to be on the lower end, the bad part of the streak. You want to get those bats going, especially against the Texas Rangers staff that loves getting hit. I kind of expected those doubleheaders to be 7 innings long. It was weird when they weren't, but it was nice that they weren't because the Yankees walked off in the 9th. When you pocket that first game win, feels really good. Tragically, though, the Yankees did hit that home run in a Little League ballpark, and we're going to probably focus most of this podcast on Chris Woodward, the guy who deserves the most conversation. And you can find this podcast talking about Chris Woodward, as well as the next 7 volumes of the Chris Woodward is a Bitch podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Drop us a 5-star review. Drop us a mailbag question. We will be more than happy to answer it, and we'll be more than happy to talk about this for sure. This excited me, the response. I wish the Yankees would have won last night's game. I wish the Stanton shot would have held up, or I wish they would have done something to score for Jordan Montgomery. Who knows? There were a few options on the table available to them. They took none of them, and so the Rangers did get to walk away happy with the second game. But Thomas Carinante, kudos to the New York media, Michael Kay, Cameron Maben, even John Heyman, who's, I guess, part of the New York media now. He works for the Daily News, seems to be on the Yankees side a lot in recent weeks and days. Nobody's letting this one go, and they're definitely not letting Chris Woodward lie about it and say he was kidding. He was not kidding. He called Yankee Stadium a Little League park, as if only one of the teams gets to play Little League style baseball.
It's just exhausting, man. Like, I don't even care about this. I'm not bothered by it. I'm more embarrassed for Rangers fans, if we're going to be honest here. Like, imagine Aaron Boone after the wild card game against the Red Sox and was like, hey, if that big fucking dumb wall wasn't in the way like it's been for the last 100 years, we would have won the game. It would have been a lot easier to win the game.
Yeah, we say that. That's what we say. That's not what you say.
Make no mistake about it. We were saying that shit. It really is just, it's so stupid at this point because there are other ballparks with sillier dimensions. Like, I watch games in Houston, and I'm not just calling out Houston because I hate the Astros. I watch games. I have MLB TV. I watch the Astros all the time. I like to watch our direct AL competitors, and the home runs that go out there in left field it's crazy. And every ballpark has certain dimensions that are favorable or unfavorable or whatever it is. And at the end of the day, both teams have the opportunity to hit the ball wherever they want. And they're faced with the same restraints, or they're faced with the same advantages. And the Rangers scoring 1 run in that game is their own problem and really nobody else's. And don't forget, Chris Woodward was the guy who cried about Fernando Tatis hitting that homer on a 3-0 count 2 years ago, and then went on to talk about the unwritten rules. And I could have sworn, and correct me if I'm wrong, there is an unwritten rule that says don't be a bitch in Major League Baseball. And it seems to me that Chris Woodward has broken that now twice.
It's written. That one's written. That one's in Abner Doubleday's original rules to the game of baseball. They spell baseball with a space between the base and the ball. Like, it's very vintage. And then the first rule is don't be a bitch. The first rule of Tom Hanks is no crying in baseball, right? I thought there was no crying in baseball. Apparently there's a ton of crying if you're the manager of his career record as manager yesterday was like 183 and 261, I believe. Like, the fact that he hasn't been dismissed yet is patience is being shown by the Texas Rangers organization. Congrats to them. I'm not sure why they're so confident Chris Woodward is the guy to lead them on to the next generation of great Rangers baseball, but he is barely holding on to a job and is recycling Red Sox talking points after getting walked off by Gleyber Torres, who we'll talk about later, is hitting the ball harder than ever during his career, has a propensity for clutch moments all of a sudden, which is, those are the handshake meme, right? You hit the ball hard, you make solid contact, you're more likely to be clutch, you're more likely to be good. Clutch is somewhere between a fallacy and a reality. You're kidding yourself if you don't think a player can be clutch, but of course, you're more likely to be clutch if you're just sick at baseball. And Gleyber Torres has been a little unlucky this year, batting .228, not that impressive, but hitting the ball really hard, coming through in a number of big moments. And this one, I mean, again, we could do an hour on Chris Woodward. This one wasn't even like one of the porch jobs that you like. No. You watch it, it's not even one that strikes me as something that I wouldn't bat an eye at that. And the stats bear it out. It would have gone out in 26 of the 30 major league stadiums. But Chris Woodward decides to go to the mat with the Red Sox fan talking points, baby stadium. I'm surprised he's not on record calling the Dodgers 2020 title a Mickey Mouse ring. He sounds like a 16-year-old. And I'm not spiraling over this. I couldn't care less. Like you said, it's just very sad that that's the kind of thing that we have to deal with. And it's the kind of thing that feels good when the Yankees are 19-7, because you can kind of just, they were a 500 team and opposing teams were coming in here doing Mickey Mouse stuff and talking about the baby wall. Then you'd be like, well, unfortunately, my team does suck. 19-7, best record in baseball, winning percentage wise. Offensively in a bit of a rut now. That's sort of baseball. That's how it happens. It helps when your offense could go blast one that would leave the yard in 26 of 30 stadiums and go win a game where you were basically, treading water offensively the whole game. That's a nice way to equalize things and turn things around. And then Chris Woodward in the second game won the game coming back from 2-0 down in the sixth inning in a rally started by like a 307-foot home run to right field by someone I've never heard of, Eli White. I mean, the king of porch jobs was that second home run that got the Rangers momentum going. So I hate that we have to keep talking back about this and saying, like, you guys play in the same stadium. Isn't that obvious? Shouldn't that be obvious if you're over the age of 9? But it shouldn't. I guess we have to keep saying this because when it creeps from fans into the dugout, into a manager's game excuse, that's when you have to look at the camera and say, you played at this ballpark. You played at this ballpark. And Gleyber did a great job responding to it after the game because he's very nice.
Yeah. And you look at the hit Gleyber had, like, that's probably a double in parks that don't have a shorter fence. That came off the bat very fast. I don't think the right fielder in many circumstances would have had the proper amount of time to adjust to that, turn around and catch it on in stride, unless he was placed further back in the outfield, which I don't know why that would be the case in that specific instance. So yeah, and like you said, this is all fine and good if it's just a bunch of schmucks on social media laughing about porch jobs or making fun of the Yankees or doing whatever. But when this does permeate to professional people whose opinions are held in higher regard and whose influence actually matters in some respect, like, Jared Carabas laughing about the Yankees short porch doesn't really hold any weight outside of just the idiots who follow him on Twitter. But a Major League Baseball manager pretending to joke about this, because his tone was not joking. You and I have been alive for over 30 years now. We know what a joke is. That was not a joke. It was clearly, he was agitated to a certain degree. And then he tries to backtrack this morning by saying he meant no disrespect. If that's your sense of humor and that's where you decide to deploy your sense of humor, it's terribly poor judgment, which probably goes to show that along with your managerial record, you probably shouldn't be leading a Major League Baseball team at this juncture after everything that has transpired since you've taken over. So I just think it's weak. I think it's boring. I don't want to be talking about it, but what's our job if we're not talking about it? I think maybe he should focus on scoring some runs with arguably two of the best bats in Major League Baseball. But Marcus Semien has a 30 OPS plus, and Corey Seager has now come crashing back down to earth after a fast 2 weeks. So the Rangers have plenty of other things that they need to get together. The last thing they need to worry about is actually being helped out by a shorter fence, because they can't score any runs this season either.
Yeah, this was supposed to be the year for Chris Woodward, and I guess he's sort of agitated because all eyes are on him now. They didn't just go out and sign one of the top shortstops; they signed two of the top shortstops, and those guys, I think they'll probably rebound to the mean at some point or come close to the mean. But it's also May 9th, and Marcus Simeon's one of the worst performing baseball players in Major League Baseball. I don't know why that's the case. It's not like Trevor Story, the alternative, has been it's really down to Story and Simeon for who's the worst players in Major League Baseball at this point. Now I'm not going to go too vociferously on that because I'm sure Simeon will sting us by the end of today's game. The Yankees third in 2 days, and they've got 38 more in the next week to rack up, and eventually they might normalize. But obviously big expectations for the Rangers this offseason. Things went off the rails quickly, Detroit Tigers style, though the Rangers aren't quite that bad. And I'm not sure why, opposing, the Rangers brass are that confident that Woodward is absolutely the guy to lead this theoretical new era of Rangers baseball. Again, raise the hand, give credit where credit's due to the Yankees announcers, to Maben, DK, who've been all over this since the comments went public, not letting Woodward say he was kidding. That's very nice of that. He was not kidding. Watch the video, like Thomas said, unless this is your first go around with what is and isn't kidding. Unless you think kidding is, Jim Carrey's Kidding, the Showtime show, took on a very serious tone. Perhaps that's your definition of kidding. But if you define the word as joking, then no, that's not what Chris Woodward was doing.
How about Boone?
How about Boone too? Yeah, let's give credit where it's due to the right people. Kay tweeting this morning, it's great to be in Williamsport for today's game. Cameron Maben yesterday, when the Rangers hit that dinky homer, I got the exact quote here, but he goes, are there takebacks in this game? You gonna take one back because it's a cheapie, or how's that go? Cameron Maben, the GOAT, saying what we're all thinking. And then after the game, Aaron Boone, obviously, there is no slicker move in baseball than the refuse to comment, which Boone managed to pull off on Sunday night. They asked him, they tried to get him going. They go, what do you think about Chris Woodward's remarks about the Little League Stadium? And he kind of looks side-eye, no comment. I'm not going to talk about that. And then in the 3-second pause before, another question is broached, he just drops a little bit. The math is wrong. It's not 99% of ballparks that would have held it. There's only 30 ballparks. And he's right. You'd have to add several ballparks to be able to get to 99% in any percentage. We're not even really close at this point. There are 30 ballparks. It's 29. Let's say Yankees team's the only one that gets out on it. It's like a 96.5 or so percentage. You add an extra ballpark, goes up to 96.77. You're going to have to add a good 10 ballparks to get anywhere close to the math that Woodward's offhandedly laying out. But when I go for math advice in Major League Baseball, I'm looking for Theo Epstein. I'm looking for Chaim Bloom. I'm looking for Andrew Friedman. I don't think I'm looking towards Chris Woodward or the Texas Rangers dugout in general. So it's not like I expected, advanced calculus from Chris Woodward's post-game presser, but I would have rather he give a little bit more credit to Gleyber Torres, who, again, we will get to it, but is hitting the snot out of the ball and stunted on that one. Took an oppo shot, lofted it, kept carrying. Like you said, the math says 26 to 30 ballparks. I don't know that to be true for sure. Can't guarantee it. Only saw it go out in one of them, and it was the one yesterday's game was being played in, which the Rangers also participated in. Rangers had the entirety of yesterday's game to participate in that game. They tied that game on a short portrait from Cole Calhoun off Garrett Cole. The old Cole Pac-12 matchup. Cole talked about he gave him some tough ABs back in college. That was a tough AB, and it ended with a line drive homer that wouldn't have gone out in most ballparks, but did go out in this one. So stick to the math that is even-handed. You don't need to twist the math around. Get it to a place where the Rangers are suddenly in the one place in the world where they would have lost yesterday's game.
Gleyber had one earlier in the game. I'm now following this account called Would It Dong.
Red Sox fans love to talk about Would It Dong whenever the Yankees go short porch. I've been looking for some Red Sox home runs for rebuttal there. Unfortunately, they don't hit any. Yeah, they just don't hit any home runs.
Oh, yeah, they don't come close because they're bad.
I've never seen a Would It Dong Red Sox because they haven't hit a ball out since April 12th, but I'll keep checking.
Gleyber had one off Glen Otto yesterday that went 395 feet at over 103 miles an hour. It would have been a home run in 24 of 30 ballparks. It was the bottom of the fourth inning, so it would have extended the Yankees' lead from 2-0. Could have helped out the cause. Also, Chris Woodward, 45-year-old guy, so like not a Joe Madden, who I love Joe Madden, nice dude, but like not of the Joe Madden age, not of the Buck Showalter age where you're referencing the old days. Oh, back in my day, you didn't do that, or you got thrown at, or we would have a problem, or you'd be someone would come up to you and reprimand you. It's like you're a 45-year-old dude, and he was surprised by 2 years ago the backlash that he had received for calling out Fernando Tatis and the Padres for Tatis swinging on the 3-0 count with the bases loaded. And the same thing, not Woodward, but a similar thing happened this year where the Nationals got pissed off because the Giants were scoring runs in the top of the ninth inning, up 6 runs. And then you see the Mets come back from 6 runs down and beat the Phillies to score 7 runs in the ninth. And it's like, does it really matter here? Can you just score runs? If you're good, you'll get the batters out. It's not like this isn't a little league mercy rule. You want to talk about little league? Playing little league is having a mercy rule because the competition is so lopsided. This is Major League Baseball. Everybody here is a professional. We shouldn't be complaining about certain circumstances. We shouldn't be complaining about other players being better than other players. If you have a team that fields the requisite amount of players to make up a roster, those guys should be good enough to play baseball, to get other guys out, and their abilities to do things shouldn't be in question, or they shouldn't be, our guys aren't good enough, or we're losing the game by too much, so we need to lay off a little bit. So you have Woodward complaining about a time where his team was down 7 runs and then went down 11, and that was not good enough for him. And then you have the Yankees winning on a walk-off, quote, cheap shot in a Little League ballpark, and that's not good enough for him either. So I think he kind of just needs to figure things out for himself.
Yeah, unwritten rules. You can't try to score when you're down when you're up 7-1. You can't try to steal bases when you're up 7-1. But written rules, you can put an outfielder in a pitch down 18-2 and just have people torpedo baseballs off. Like that. Yeah, that's the level of competition. Being like, we're gonna just put in some guy. Like that doesn't make a mockery of Major League Baseball, but stealing a base up 7-1 does. And that's a lead that can be erased. It's a bad game if you blow 7-1 lead for sure. It goes in the column of wish that hadn't happened, but it happens. Hopefully not too often. If it happens to you too often, you're probably a bad team. But teams blow 7-1 leads, not usually in the ninth. That's the Philly special, but teams do blow 7-1 leads, and it's very upsetting and true. Let's talk about what we've got on the horizon for the Yankees, unfortunately. Again, I'll do a million years on Woodward. I'll keep talking about it. The Yankees' upcoming schedule is terrible. You don't want to mince words. The only lucky thing about it is the opponent quality. And again, every Major League team, decent. The Baltimore Orioles proving to be decent. Ahead of the Boston Red Sox. They've sent the Boston Red Sox into last place. So saying opponent quality is not saying that like, well, the Yankees at least have some easy peasies in here. No, it's just you would rather face the Orioles 7 times in this stretch than the Blue Jays 7 times. That's all we're saying. And we're not rooting for facing any of these teams, but the Yankees had 2 random off days after the Thursday off day due to rainouts. My bachelor party was this weekend. I saw 0 Yankees games until it was over, until the drive home, which is insane. I had some good buddies who were like, I kind of wish we were going to the stadium instead of, we went to Cooperstown, New York. They're like, God, it kind of feels weird that we're not going to the stadium for your bachelor party. And I kind of was just like, yeah, it does feel a little bit weird. Then I tried to get one of them to go to the game on Sunday with me. And he was like, it's Mother's Day and I have a child and my wife is going to shoot me. I was like, that's valid. Yeah, you can't do that. But thank goodness we didn't plan that because there were no baseball games, which now leads into they played 2 against the Rangers yesterday. They're playing the Rangers now on what was supposed to be an off day. They played 2 against the Blue Jays for no reason. So today's a day game. Tomorrow, I don't know what that was. That was a scheduled series, a 2-game home set against the Blue Jays. 1 day, 1 night. The night game comes first, then the getaway day, 12:35 day game. Then they need the getaway day because they go to Chicago, play the White Sox 4 times in 4 days. White Sox getting hot, swept the Red Sox, although don't know what that means. Can't tell if that means you're good or not. Going to Baltimore for 4 immediately thereafter. Got a getaway day the next day too. Coming home, facing Chicago 3 times in 3 days. Then Baltimore Orioles 3 times in 3 days. Then going to Tampa 4 Rays games in 4 days. So the Yankees end up with 23 games in 22 days. But now we're all the way down to 21 in 21. A classic stretch of baseball. It's not unrelenting. It's not unforgiving. But as soon as you get into the rain out in here, you start getting into trouble. Which probably will happen. It's raining in New York. It's raining in Baltimore. It's raining in Chicago. The only place where you can't get a rain out is Tampa, Florida. And there are a whole lot of, I would rather have a rain out in Tampa, Florida than have to play a fucking Major League Baseball game in whatever that place is, which has a roof. And honestly, I bet that thing leaks. So I can't even guarantee you there's not going to be a rain out inside in Tampa. This Yankees team has set themselves up very well for a stretch like this. Again, going 19-8 is going to help you out in many ways because every baseball team has tough stretches. 2 against the Blue Jays, 4 at the White Sox is a difficult stretch, especially as the White Sox get in gear. You're not going to win all of those baseball games. That's why going 9-0 against the Guardians, Royals, and Orioles in a stretch where you could have easily gone 7-2 and just shaken hands and been like, hey, a sweep in two games out of 3. That's not bad. That's why you like banking those extra wins, because the season gets weird. It's frustrating to have your momentum blunted by something you can't control for what feels like the 1,000th straight season. Usually it's an injury. This time it's a 3, days off thanks to 2 rainouts. And clearly the offense has come back and not been quite the same as it was prior to the rainouts. Again, it was bound to happen at some point. Nobody mashes all year long. Nobody pitches all year long. Michael King gave up a 2-run homer yesterday. Their 162 game season is all about being ready for the end of it. But that said, the offense is going through a prolonged slump now, in large part due to the fact that they had to take 3 random days off, chugged beers at the Rangers game, thought they were playing the next day, weren't, snoozing on the couch. It's really no secret why this offensive rhythm looks a little bit off. Gleyber looks fine. Stanton looks fine. He's sort of in a rhythm. He's doing that thing where he's ripping liners, but everybody else is in trouble. And then, when the top of the lineup is producing runs, everything sort of falls into place. When you can put up 4 or 5 guaranteed on a given day from 2 homers and productive outs, then great. But when the top of the lineup isn't doing it and the bottom of the lineup is Jose Trevino in the catcher hole, then you start looking at it going, I kind of miss scoring runs. That was a pretty big bummer that we're not doing that anymore. And right now, the offensive output is not there.
No, and if we're to look at this in a greater scope, actually, it's 29 games in 28 days. And then after that, it's 26 games in 27 days. So it ends up being 55 games in 55 days, which is a lot.
A lot of games.
Yeah, and they don't play on July 4th. I don't know who decided that on the schedule. I don't know who needs a stone cold stunner for that. But I don't know why the New York Yankees are not playing on July 4th. They're also
Steinbrenner's birthday too.
It is?
Yeah, July 4th.
Yeah. So, I'm sorry. No, they have another day off in between there. I missed the 30th. They don't play a Memorial Day either.
Great.
So yeah. So it's 56 games in 57 days, which is still a lot. And I think it's going to show. I think it's going to show us really what the team is made of. Look, other teams are going through similar tough stretches. The Dodgers have 31 games in 30 days, which is not easy. And they started that on the road against the Cubs this weekend. But you look at the Yankees as currently constructed, and there's still a lot of question marks. Not bad, but just like, okay, how long is this going to last? You look at Nestor Cortez dealing right now against the Rangers. It's awesome to watch. How many innings does Nestor have? He's gonna surpass the 30 inning mark a month into the season, and he's never thrown more than 92 in a single year. So that's something to watch. Luis Severino, 24 innings so far throughout the first month of the season. This big stretch coming up, what's Aaron Boone going to do with the rotation if there's no off days, if somebody's not getting that extra day of rest? Are we calling up a couple guys for a spot start to break it up in between? I don't know. You look at the bullpen. Yes, Michael King finally gave up a run. How long is that going to last with him? How is Clay Holmes going to get tired? Is Chapman finally is he going to endure the stretch that he did last year that was nightmarish?
I mean, he hasn't pitched in a week and a half or whatever.
I know.
So you know his next outing is going to look funky as hell. So
yeah,
just be prepared for that.
Yeah. So, yeah. And it's going to be, we're going to be looking at, I think people are going to start, this is when people are going to start getting mad because you're playing 56 games in 57 days. You got to have off days for some guys, especially if you're traveling. And especially if you have some inferior opponents in here, like the Orioles, like the Cubs, um, like the Athletics, and like the Guardians again. So someone's going to have to. Not everybody's going to be able to play as consistently as they have. I'm not banking on an injury, but
Yeah.
you have to think it's just going to be a test in so many ways for the overall longevity from a production standpoint and from a health standpoint. Because this is where it's going to start to change. And the pressure is a little bit off right now because they were able to get through those first 25, 30 games or whatever it was in the manner that they were. So I just think over the next 2 months, there's going to be a lot more complaining. I hope Aaron Boone sticks with what he has with so far. His bullpen management has been great. He's kept the lineup pretty much static where it should be based on performances thus far. So I think he has a lot to lean on based on what we've learned through the first month. But it's not going to get any easier. I think we're going to see another prolonged slump throughout this period. But it'll be up to them showing us what they got. I think that this team is up for the task. They've shown me nothing. They've done nothing but impress me and show resilience up until this point. So I'm not necessarily worried about it. But I think a lot of these talking points are worth considering when you're looking at a stretch as daunting as this over the next 2 months.
And let's say they dominate this upcoming one. Let's say they prove us wrong and they do really well in Chicago and the Baltimore series. They go 6-1 in those 7 games or something, and they escape these 23 games in 22 days with like, I don't know, a 16-7 record or something. And then everybody goes, oh, you guys were whining about the schedule, but look at this. Like, even a 14-9, like, oh, that's called surviving or whatever. Well, then the stretch you need to worry about is the mid-June one where they go 3 against the Rays, 3 in Toronto, 3 in Tampa against the Rays, and 4 against the Astros. Like, I'm not necessarily even worried about this current stretch, which could go, not well. The Yankees could struggle with no off days. It's totally possible. The offense ain't hitting right now. You're already seeing, some negative ramifications of the rainouts. But let's say they perform really well here, and then all of a sudden a couple people are on the shelf and a couple relievers don't look the same. And the rotation, Jordan Montgomery is still getting yanked at 71 pitches, and they don't have these arms to cover the innings. And then they got this mid-June rampage against these really talented teams, and that's where the cracks begin to show. It's possible we won't be able to accurately judge this tough stretch at the end of May. We might have to wait until the middle of June. Let's see which bodies are available for that big stretch. And no stretch now is as big as a stretch in October. We're not saying like this season will be determinative. You need to finish strong in May or else it's over. No, nobody's saying that. But obviously the Yankees are in a bit of a predicament that they probably should not have been, and that it wasn't raining upstate. I can tell you that much. Maybe we should have relocated the Yankees home games in the Bronx upstate. Saw some people cracking out with the it's ridiculous there isn't a retractable roof at Yankee Stadium take this weekend. I mean, I thought you guys were traditionalists. Like you want to put a roof on Yankee Stadium all of a sudden? Like I don't understand 60-year-olds on Twitter. I never will, in like 1,000 different ways. Like in some
They
of them
have Twitter.
Some of them are Russian bots. Some of them are, the blue wave resistance Twitter people. Some of them are just tweeting their thoughts at brands, at Dunkin' Donuts. Great latte today. Thanks. And so I never really understand what 60-year-olds are doing on Twitter, but they both complain about like how baseball needs to get back to the old days, no strikeouts or whatever. But then all of a sudden the same people are like, put a roof on my beloved Yankee Stadium. Okay, whatever. I wish this had not derailed the team's progress at all. It's so funny to go from 2021 where I'm like begging for rain. It's like, oh my God, save me from watching the Yankees. Please save my ass. And now I'm like, oh man, I'm genuinely missing baseball. Went up and had a baseball weekend with a lot of friends, enjoyed beers on the porch. Baseball Hall of Fame is great. Got an extremely NSFW cameo from Jose Canseco. Disgusting. That guy needs to look in the mirror. But I was hoping to enjoy some baseball along with that. Instead, I'm just watching Rangers hockey. I'm watching the Penguins' ninth string goalie hang on to defeat the Rangers in Game 3. So not quite what I was expecting. And thanks to Mother Nature, you should have probably delivered these rainouts last year. That's all I'm saying. A pile of rainouts in 2021 would be more appreciated than in this current stretch where the Yankees are impressing. Let's talk about one of the most impressive men on that roster, the guy who ended Sunday's first game, Gleyber Torres. Because what a whirlwind April has been. Prior to the season, I would say Gleyber was pretty obviously the guy that was written off as, once Gio Urshela got out of town, probably the one other lingering mystery in the infield picture, considering Oswald Peraza was right there. Anthony Volpe starting Double-A. Oswaldo Cabrera is a guy who probably should have been on the big league roster to start the season instead of Marwin Gonzalez, et cetera, et cetera. They got shortstops at the lower levels. They got Trey Sweeney, and Gleyber isn't even a shortstop. You can't put him there. We yelled about it. We yelled about it 100 times. They're putting him at short. He looked awful. Lo and behold, Volpe started off the year real slow. Hot now. Numbers still look bad. Cabrera and Peraza, terrible at AAA. Just awful. Again, it's just April, April 2022. Not making a grand judgment on their lives. They're young, but pretty objectively shouldn't be in the majors right now, considering they're struggling at a lower level. Torres, right now, you basically have to play him every day. He leads Major League Baseball in outs above average as a second baseman. He's been, by some metrics, the best defensive second baseman in baseball. And offensively, 443 slugging, 710 OPS, 228 average, 4 bombs, 13 ribs entering today. Still a small sample size, 87 plate appearances. He's only got 18 hits on the season. We are not talking about a full season's worth of baseball, but the data, his average exit velocity in the 89th percentile, hard hit percentage, 88th percentile, expected slugging, 92nd, expected weighted on base, 87th, chase rate. He swings and misses too much on balls outside of the zone, and he doesn't walk, but he doesn't strike out much, 78th percentile. Most of the numbers are red. We've already touched on how these numbers are better than Gleyber's career year in 2019 when he rode the juice balls in the Orioles bullpen to 38 homers. I don't know if he'll ever be that again, but I do know that he's 25 years old right now and just had arguably the best month of solid contact of his major league career. And it led to clutchness. He is now clutch. Being good helps you be clutch. It's one of the key factors in being clutch. If you are talented at baseball and striking the ball well, especially in an offensive environment that has been a desert for most people, it stands out more. He's not a pushover in this lineup anymore. You get him the Isaiah Connor-Falefa scoring the game-winning run in the Guardians game. That Ribby walk-off single will stand out. But the home run yesterday, his second walk-off of the year, the Toronto series, he was the one to deliver that home run to turn it into a 2-0 game. He was the one to break the tie late in the 8th. Turn it over to Chad Green, who got the job done. Is Chad Green clutch? It's a conversation for a later date. But Gleyber so far this year has been the man you want up in scenarios like that, late and close. And it's crazy to think about where he started this season and where he is now.
Yeah, an opening day sac fly to tie the game.
Off the bench, fresh, cold Gleyber. Yeah.
Very bizarre. And also you look at Fangraphs, his defensive rating, I guess, I don't know what the metric is called, Fangraphs defense, 1.0 on the year. He's never had a positive throughout his entire career. Negative 3.6 rookie season, negative 4 2019, somehow better metrics, negative 0.8 and negative 2.5 at shortstop in 2020 and 2021. This year, a full 1. And you don't see the results with the OPS and the average, but you do see the results with WRC plus, which is a 107, and his OPS plus, which I think is like a 110. I could look that up in a second. But another weird thing is like Gleyber Torres is literally the eye test this year. You have to watch games to understand that he's been clutch and he's been good, because you even look at the splits, high leverage splits. He's batting .261 with a 756 OPS, 2 outs with runners in scoring position, .222 average with a 444 OPS. runners in scoring position just in general, 222 with a 638 OPS. So you really have to like look in. You have to be watching the game to understand what's going on, because the metrics are not showing this. But the late and close does show it. I will say that 357 with a 946 OPS, 1 homer, 4 RBIs. So that's the only thing that shows how valuable he's truly been. And it does have me wondering now, because if he is turning into this guy where he's super valuable on defense and he is a clutch bat, if it's not an entirely consistent bat, it doesn't matter. All it needs to be is clutch. All you need to be in baseball is clutch. You can bat under 250 for your career. If you come through in big moments for your team, that's how you make a name for yourself. That's how is Sandy Leone, a Red Sox legend, batted 200 his entire career, just came through in a couple big moments. Fans loved him. That's really what it comes down to.
Hey, I'll be the only one to say it. Can Gleyber play shortstop? No, I'm just kidding. He can't do that. But really you're right.
Yeah. Now, what is the play here? Because you're not putting DJ LeMahieu on the bench, because his return to the leadoff spot when this lineup has been hitting has been the difference. Him and IKF kind of bookending the things with bookending the situation with higher averages and more aggressiveness in those spots. Is this just a way for the Yankees to increase Gleyber Torres' trade value in any? I know they're not planning on him being clutch, but are they going to use this to their advantage when the trade deadline approaches? I wouldn't think so, but at the same time, are they just going to sit there and hold on to him and have a guy who's 25 years old kind of be like a part-timey type player where he's getting time, but he's also not like the main guy you're calling upon, but he's also kind of clutch, so you have to put him in these weird situations? I don't know. The usage hasn't been like super questionable to me, but it's evident that he's kind of second tier on the team right now when you look at just the hierarchy in general. So now that I wonder, I think other teams would value his ability to hit in clutch situations. I think the return of his hard contact and his patience at the plate kind of changes things, even if the numbers across the board are not fully there. If you're seeing positive results in a category such as delivering in late and close situations and delivering in the clutch, that kind of changes the game for a player as a whole, a player, how they're viewed just in the general scope of fans and how they're viewed differently by rival front offices. So I think it's worth keeping an eye on, or at least thinking about up until the trade deadline, because I don't know. You tell me. I don't know if I don't know if this is enough for Gleyber Torres to still salvage his long-term outlook as a New York Yankee, just based on where the highs have been and where the lows have been. And now we're reaching like this nice little middle ground period, which is admittedly nice. But if the sample size, continues to increase and he's batting 250, but he's really clutch, and you still have DJ LeMahieu under contract for 5 more years, like what's the situation there? I do not know. It does seem a little bit complicated though, because you're taking away a lot of playing time from a 25-year-old, which doesn't seem entirely fair. So I don't know how other people are viewing this, but that's just kind of where my brain's at when I'm looking at it.
Yeah, I'm not giving him an extension. I'm not thinking about it. I think it's funny. The Yankees went from having all these extension candidates to now the pool is drying up. Like it was like, well, you got to pay Judge and you got to pay Gary Sanchez and you got to pay Gleyber. And now it's kind of like, do you want to pay Jordan Montgomery or not? That's really the only guy who is involved in the extension conversation. Some might. He's clearly an elite starting pitcher for 65 to 75 pitches a game. And he is somebody who every single Jordan Montgomery game ends up looking the exact same. Yankees don't hit for him. He pitches well enough to win. Yankees don't hit enough. He doesn't win, but he doesn't exactly pitch well enough to win the games he's actually given, because he's given 1-0 and 2-0 leads. So he's pitching well enough to win a theoretical game, but not the game that's actually on the field, in which he is not quite pitching well enough or long enough to win. So all of a sudden you've got extension money floating that is much more likely to go to Judge, who they're going to have to pool that together because he's earned himself $30 or $40 million this year. We talked about it last week already. He's already somebody, as long as he stays healthy and relatively consistent, he's done all he had to do to make a notable jump in consistency to get that additional $40 million. So, Gleyber Torres having a clutch April with good hard hit stats is not enough for me to reevaluate his long-term future as long as the guys on the low levels below him are performing up to expectations. Now, they're not. I can't sit here today looking in the eyes and say Peraza is the shortstop of the future. Volpe is the second baseman of the future. I believe in those guys, and I certainly believe in Volpe, who, like we've noted, has turned it around in recent days. It's hard to say that. Again, it's another thing that I can't lock eyes with you and say I'm happy with Anthony Volpe's start to the season, where he's hitting 195 with a 330 OBP and 732 OPS. But his first taste of Double-A, that's not bad. I mean, and you look at the splits, it's getting much better. And relative to the league, he's performing well. I'd just rather Anthony Volpe be hitting 280 with power instead of 195 with power. So that's certainly a situation where if you're like, his WRC plus is actually, and I'm like, no, just hit 270, hit 280. Don't need Joey Gallo at short. Thank you. Although he doesn't strike out that much. I believe in him. I'm still staking my claim on Volpe Island. I'm not letting his first cold bat month at Double-A Somerset sway me away from that. And so with LeMahieu long-term and LeMahieu looking like this, unless you want to convert DJ LeMahieu to a left fielder, which you shouldn't, he's going to have to take up an infield spot. This, to me, it doesn't tell me anything about Gleyber's long-term future. It just makes the Urshela trade that much more obvious. You can't carry around starter-level depth for any longer than you have to. And yeah. I really thought that they were going to end up dumping Gio for some really underwhelming return. And they ended up getting IKF, who is somebody who, let's say the shortstop job gets usurped next year, he can absolutely play 110 games as a super sub. You don't have to worry about that with him. He's your third catcher right now.
Third base.
Yeah, he can play third. He can play short. He can play second. Gleyber can DH. IKF can probably play the outfield. Would you be shocked? I wouldn't be shocked. He can do that roving thing better than Torres can. That's for damn sure. So let's say somebody supplants him. You can move him to the bench. You can't move Gio Urshela to the bench and play him at short and third every couple of days. So that trade was 100% worth it. It opened up playing time for Gleyber Torres, who's already getting squeezed now. Imagine how much he'd be getting squeezed if they hadn't done that.
Yeah. It's weird. And once again, I didn't get involved. I just ran into another social media thing where there's a contingent of Yankee fans who don't like DJ LeMahieu. And I don't really get it. Because now that you mentioned him and we talked about him atop the lineup and how it kind of makes all the difference. I don't know why people don't like him, especially the advanced stats people who are citing WRC plus for Volpe and Gallo. They'll be fine. Everything for DJ checks out. Not only does he hit for average, and the other thing about this is sometimes too often we will hold batting average in higher regard. Older generations will hold batting average in higher regard than they perhaps should in this day and age. But what's the end game in baseball? It's to hit the baseball and put it in play and to get on base. So if you're doing that, you're succeeding in the one facet of the game that says, hey, this can determine if you're good or not. If you can hit the ball, time pitch as well, and also put the ball in spots where the fielders are not. And then on top of that, you look at DJ LeMahieu, a 129 OPS plus and a 132 WRC plus, 289 average. I know the 765 OPS isn't like the most desirable, but it's good. And it's clear that, him hitting 300 for most of the year thus far has propelled the Yankees in a way that we haven't really seen since 2019. And I know that other circumstances had played into that in 2020 and 2021 with injuries and other people underperforming around him. But I just don't understand. I don't understand the disdain for DJ LeMahieu, especially because he strikes out very little and he gets on base. He has a high OBP. He has a 354 OBP. So it's not like his batting average is nearly identical to his OBP. He's finding other ways to get on base. So I know this is not what we plan on talking about, but I was just, once we brought him up, I pulled up to see how he was officially doing after the last couple games. Mm-hmm. And even the advanced stats check out. So I don't understand, I don't know what leg these people have to stand on when they're criticizing DJ LeMahieu and standing guys like Joey Gallo, nice little rebound for Joey Gallo. I think 285 over his recent stretch of games, where he's kind of been on fire. We see the power coming back. We're seeing more of an effortless swing, him hitting balls in the zone, which is great. But we've never seen DJ LeMahieu endure anything close to a stretch Joey Gallo has, and nobody's defended him in that regard, even when he was injured and outperforming Gleyber Torres. So I don't know, just confusing stuff. It'd just be nice if we liked our players and held the ones accountable that we should, and leave the guys alone who are producing. But I don't know. I guess I'm the idiot.
I guess I'm the idiot too. We got to get off the air. The Yankees at the bases loaded, 1 out for Judge. You got another called strike at his own shoe tops. Struck out, and Rizzo struck out. So no more runs. Why would you score? Why would you score ever? So after just doing 47 minutes on why I do believe in this team and why they've set themselves up well, this is this is the worst 3-game series offensive performance ever, if you take the Rangers pitching into account. So before I absolutely throw a disc through my screen, it's worth signing off. This will not be forever, but it is currently happening. It's dreadful. It's very, 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 very bad.
It sucks.
The offense is terrible right now. Right now, the offense is terrible right now. Not forever, but right now. That is it for this edition of the Yanks Go Yard podcast. Make sure to find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We will be there. You can also find us live on YouTube, 2 o'clock Eastern, Mondays and Thursdays. That's official. Stay tuned for some big things coming up. We're going to be giving you details later in the week. And we're not talking guests, folks. We're talking beyond guests. We're talking expansion. We're talking come on by. Check us out. Watch the show. Until next time, I'm Adam Weinrib. You can find me on Twitter at Adam Weinrib. Thomas Carinate, where can the people find you?
I'm at Tommy's_takes. Thanks for coming back, Adam. That 45-minute solo episode. I don't even know how I talked that long.
I do
really
like 20. I do like 20 while you're gone. I don't know why you do that.
Yeah, I don't know. I just kept talking. And once I find myself not saying and over and over again, I know it's kind of organic. And then I look up and I'm like, I've been talking for 45. Who is listening to this? But anyway, great to have you back. Folks, hit me up on at Tommy's_takes. Find both of us at yanksgoyard.com. We got our bylines up there, writing plenty of content for you. Ripping Chris Woodward, having a good time. Head on over to the official Yanks Go Yard Twitter account at Yanks Go Yard FS. And for crying out loud, just get a win today. We'll chill for the rest of the week, hang out. We'll talk to you again on Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern, live on YouTube and Twitter, with hopefully not an anemic offensive performance under our belt for the remainder of the week. So sit tight, folks. We'll talk to you soon. Have a good week.
Have a good week. We will see you on Thursday.